Hi, I'm Rohit and welcome to the Loving Soulfully webinar series. Today we're going to talk about the reincarnation of romantic love. And what I mean by that is we're going to trace the history of romantic love, how we got to be where we are today, the mess that we're in, and the imminent death of romantic love as I see it. We're also going to look at the fact that it's such an intrinsic part of us that there's no real letting go of it. We are going to look at what the reincarnation of romantic love might look like, what its rebirth might be, and what the future of love might be as we go forward. Morning and welcome to Loving Soulfully webinar series. Today we're going to talk about, well, what else? Love. But we're going to move from the earlier topic I've been speaking about, which is self-love, which to me is the basic foundation of relationships. And we're going to move on to the area of romantic love. What makes it work? What makes it die? And what we need to do to bring back life to romantic love, which has been going through a crisis, I believe, in present times. I don't know if you've experienced it or not, but I certainly have. And I think all around us, we're all experiencing some version of that crisis in romantic love. So I thought, let me read something from my book. Let me bring up some more points. Let's make it relevant. Let's make it something we can talk about. And let's hear your views and opinions as well, because I really want to hear what you've got to say. We have to do this together. This is not something one person can do. We need to literally recreate our ideas of romantic love, because so far they've been causing a great deal, a lot of turmoil. And sometimes I think it's like on the verge of death. But it definitely needs a reincarnation of sorts. It needs a way of being able to be revived. And that revival requires us to look at the roots of romantic love, how it came about, what are the myths and the beliefs that we've picked up along the way. Because it is those myths and beliefs that are creating the problems we're having today. You see, romantic love as such was constructed, the concepts were constructed hundreds of years ago, when it was in an era that was entirely different than the times we live in now. The divorce rates have shot up to as much as 50-60%. And this is happening all across the world. I mean, I grew up in India, where divorce was unheard of at the time I was growing up. And then come to somewhere around the year 2000, and boy, there was thousands of people getting divorced. It wasn't anymore a strange kind of thing that only some rare persons did. It was commonplace. And the same thing happened in America just a lot earlier, perhaps in the 60s, 70s, 80s. I'm not sure quite where that began. But definitely if you go back into the 50s and before that in America, you didn't see that level of divorce. Now we find people struggling with the issue of affairs. And of course, most of that leads to divorce as well. But it's become so commonplace that those affairs have become deeply wounding to the heart and mind. And it's just that, we need solutions. We need to find ways in which to be able to deal with this epidemic of chaos that is being created in our romantic lives. Many of us have armored up. We've become a little hardened by the experience, maybe bitter. And I would like, my intention and hope is to bring back hope into the area of our love lives, to create something sacred, to create something that is really at a more mature level than the concepts we've been having up till now. So during the course of this pre-recorded video, which I'm going to play for you in a few minutes, I'll be going into sort of the history of how romantic love began. It's by understanding the roots of that we'll understand the flaws in our thinking, which we take for granted right now. many of the assumptions we have, such as, finding the person who's going to be the one. So concepts like that came from hundreds of years ago, and they're actually based on many religious teachings. So I'm going to go into some of those roots. This is going to be a very flowing question and answer kind of webinar. So please feel free to write. You have a chat box there. Ask any questions you might have. Know that I'm here and listening and reading your texts or your chats, and very eager to be able to respond and really make this something that is interactive, so that we can all share our ideas and thoughts. I learn from every single person that I come in touch with, so I know I will learn from you, and I hope I can share something that I know with you as well. I also hope you've had a chance to download my book, Loving Soulfully, and read it, perhaps. If not, I hope you'll read it after the webinar. I'm going to start in just a couple of minutes now with the main pre-recorded video that I've put together for you, tracing the history of romantic love all the way into the present, looking at where the chaos has come from and what we need to do about it. So that's the part that I look at as being almost like the death of romantic love, because I see it struggling, like almost gasping for breath right now, with all the affairs and the divorces and all of that stuff. And I'm looking at, okay, what do we need to do about this? How do we resolve this crisis? And how do we come up with new solutions? I put together a lot of solutions in my book, Loving Soulfully. And a lot of folks said, hey, we want more. We want some explanations. We need some answers. We need something more. Give us more. So I decided, all right, to do these webinar series. And we began the webinar series talking about self-love, which I believe is the root, the foundation of being able to build a secure romantic relationship, one that will truly last through time. So, that's where I begin from. I begin from saying that know yourself, love yourself first. Because to the degree that you are secure in yourself, you will not put a whole bunch of expectations on your partner. Because it is ultimately those expectations that lead to the conflicts, that lead to the upsets, that lead to the breakdowns. And that's why people land up with therapists and trying to work things out. It's big business now. So I would like to say that we can get past all that by becoming wiser, smarter, by collaborating, by contributing to each other. So I really look forward to your thoughts and ideas. All right, here goes with the pre-recorded section. I put this together for you. I hope you enjoy it. Let's trace it back right to the beginning. According to anthropologists, we've been around 200,000 years. Now, I don't actually agree with that. Some of my studies into spirituality tell us that we may have been around for millions of years. But let's get past that. If we've been around 200,000 years, according to anthropologists, we lived in tribes. And it is only 10,000 years ago that we began to have agriculture. Now, when we were in tribes, there was no such thing as marriage, there was no such thing as romance, there was no such thing as love. People lived on the edge of survival, hunting, gathering, and having sex whenever they felt like it, with whomever they felt like it. Nobody was in ownership of anybody else. I don't know how people dealt with jealousy and the things we deal with now, but they did somehow. They survived. And then 10,000 years ago, we had agriculture. And then agriculture meant we had land. We started to own pieces of land. And once we started owning pieces of land, we wanted to have someone to pass it down to. We wanted to pass it on to our children. At that point, we wanted to have a spouse with who we could say, this is my child. And then I want to hand it down to my kid. So when that sense of my land, my child, my spouse came along, the whole concept of marriage developed into a form, or rather an arrangement, to be able to pass on inheritance of land, of cows, of property, pigs, of ducks, or whatever it was at that time that they were raising, along with the crops. Now, it's only in the in that period, that monogamy became a concept because the male wanted that the female only have sex with him so that it was his child to whom the property was handed down. And because of this idea, women who wanted protection and to be cared for and supported and create their nest for their child agreed to this form or arrangement of monogamy. Thereafter, we've come into the 20th century with all kinds of grand illusions, but much of those grand illusions about romantic love didn't take place until, well, just a few hundred years ago. In the 12th century, concepts of romantic love were just starting to emerge. Greek philosophers like Plato and Aristotle emerged with their concepts of love. Aristotle's description of the love two people find in harmony of each other's virtues, where he said one soul and two bodies. As he poetically put it, such love was deemed to be of high status ethically, aesthetically, and even metaphysically compared to more sexual intimacy. It was more or less the foundation of what we call romantic love today. And then there came the Roman poet Ovid, who portrayed love as this transcendently motivated thing that where there was deep respect for the lady and the man earnestly pursued in chivalric deeds rather than through sexual relations. A lot of this had to do, the actual origin of the word romantic comes from Romanicus, meaning the of Roman style or from Rome. So Rome seemed to have played quite a major part in the formation of our ideas of romantic love, and that's why till today the Italians have a very romantic streak in them. The British took it further during the time of the knights and ladies. You have stories of Lancelot and Guinevere during the time of King Arthur, and around that time the concepts of courtly love were popularized. Somewhere around 1883 is where it's pinned or pegged at. And that was the concept there was it was sought to reconcile the erotic desire and spiritual attainment. It was about a love that was at the same time illicit and morally elevating, passionate and self-disciplined, humiliating and exalting, human and transcendent. They were trying to bring together these different aspects of ourselves. Lords and ladies could have affairs even though they were married. See, marriage was something that was an arrangement. Marriage was something that was done for convenience so that you could bring children. It was people of similar social status. It was because of economic reasons. It was because of politics. But then they also noticed that there were affairs happening, and so they formalized this system whereby lords and ladies could have romantic feelings towards each other, but they would not sexualize them. There was great poetry written at that time. There was the concepts of unrequited love. It was quite a time of the blossoming of the bud of romantic love. However, keep in mind that it was completely non-sexual. It is also around this time that Romeo and Juliet was written. If you notice that story, they were driven to tragedy by forces seemingly outside of their control, by romantic love which transcended moral boundaries and sought fulfillment even at the risk of one's own life. So it became this heroic thing. It became this thing that was beyond this world. It was idealized in so many ways. Schopenhauer, in fact, saw romantic love as no more than a device of nature for reproducing the species. So you had all these different views. He said, once our work is done, as we've copulated and we've come together, we've been together, we've given birth to this child, then the love we had for our mate leaves us and there is nothing we can do about it. So they justified in that sense that romantic love was essential because it kept us alive, it kept us desiring, it kept us wanting. Because with our marriage partner, it was going to die. And there had to be an outlet for this. Otherwise, we would just leave our marriages, and they didn't want that to happen. The principles of romantic love were formed almost similarity to the ideas of religion. For the first thing, there was an idealization of the beloved. Just as there was an idealization of God, God was seen as the ultimate being, and the lover or the beloved was seen as the one, this concept of the one still exists with us today. Then there was the idea of eternality, till death do us part, or in some religions it was even thought of, we will be there lifetime after lifetime. And then there was the concept of one God, and this was really embedded in the ideas of monogamy, that there will be one person for life. And then there was the idea of the savior, the concept of the knight in shining armor, someone who was going to save you, someone who was going to deliver you from all the troubles of the world. And much of that filters down to our present day ideas of romantic love. We still seem to be stuck in a Victorian notion while being in the modern times. In the modern times, a lot has changed. When we were in the 60s and the sexual revolution was occurring, people began to think that romantic love would die. That now people could have sex without marriage, they didn't even need to be in love. There was free love, free sex for everybody. But somehow that didn't last. The 60s and 70s went by, the 80s came along, and in the 80s, love had a resurgence. It was perhaps the music, perhaps the movies, I don't know, not really sure. But love became the prerequisite to marriage, very strongly so now. And it was felt that when there was no longer love, that people would move on. That's when divorce became very popular as well. See, if we look at the biology of romantic love, we begin to understand how it all starts. It all begins with attraction. And we all know that. First, there is an attraction for someone, and then from that attraction comes a sexual desire. And if that desire is met by the other person, well, there might be a touch, there might be a kiss, there might be sex. And when all of that happens, the chemical dopamine emerge, which makes us feel good, and oxytocin, the hormone, which helps us bond with each other. And interestingly enough, during this time, the prefrontal cortex is suppressed. And that's why they say that love is blind, because we're not thinking straight at that time. And because of that, we don't always make the best decisions. We do follow our chemistry, we do follow our attraction, we do follow our desire, and we don't know where the heck that comes from or if that's in our best interest. And because of that, love brings to us partners that aren't necessarily always the best for us. Now, if you look at some of the older concepts that were there, and still exist in countries where they have arranged marriages, let's say like in India, you'll find that the elders made those choices, or society made those choices, or matchmakers made those choices, because they could see more clearly than the people who were in love. They knew that. They understood that. So they said, we're going to make the decisions for you. Anyways, let's follow the evolution of how love progresses. So all these chemicals get generated, and then the couple begins to stay together. During this time, for a while, the serotonin and dopamine are in their full swing, and gradually they diminish as sex occurs for a while, which is actually supposed to be the period in which the child is born. Nowadays, they're able to prevent the child being born, but in the design of nature, that was supposed to be that period. Then that is referred to today by psychologists as the honeymoon period. After that time, the serotonin and dopamine levels reduce, and the oxytocin remains, the bonding remains. So the couples stay together. And from here on, we begin really the relationship. It becomes normalized. There's now security, there's safety, there's a reduction of desire. And during this time, the next phase begins to occur. We start to focus on the flaws of a person. There is increased conflict. There is the possibility of breakup or an affair. And this is the second stage of a relationship. The third stage is if one can actually go from the idealized stage of romantic love to the part where we've now able to see the other person's flaws, which is a few months later after the honeymoon period, and finally come to a place where we're able to see both their good and bad qualities, their positive and negative, and love them anyway. That is the time where unconditional love has a chance of emerging. Nowadays, we see that as many as 50 to 60% of couples don't make it that far. Or if they do, then sooner or later they seem to want more. And that's the time when affairs seem to be born and arise. There's an epidemic of that going on. Some would say 50% of couples have had an affair somewhere in the course of a relationship, and others might say up to 75%. The division between men and women is more or less equal. Not exactly, more a little bit on the side of men, but women have been catching up with that as well. And here's the reason why affairs occur. Because while love is all about closeness, security, familiarity, predictability, desire seems to diminish as love increases. And desire, because desire is all about novelty, it's just the opposite things: novelty, imagination, mystery, risk, distance. Quite the opposite of love. And if you look at both these things, they have a hard time coexisting. We find the lover, we're with them, and then gradually the sex drive diminishes, which then leads to the straying and the affairs, which then leads to the breakup. So this cycle has become so prominent in our society today that people have begun to question the very notion of romantic love. And as we begin to move on that journey, I'd like to read you a little something from my book, Loving Soulfully. Because in that book, I talk about this search for the one. We look for someone who will be our ideal lover, our friend, our confidant, our intellectual and spiritual equal. There's such a lot of pressure. What used to be provided by an entire village, we now look for in one person. At the same time, we want to feel that I'm special, I'm unique, I'm irreplaceable. And when an affair happens, when infidelity happens, it shatters the myth, the grand ambition of love, that I am the one, you are the one. All of that is shattered to pieces. And we're left holding our hearts, our broken hearts, and wondering if we'll ever love again. I don't know if you've had that experience. I certainly have. I've had it many times. I've seen a lot of people retreat into a shell, put up an armor. Many people begin to doubt themselves, maybe doubt love, that they'll never love again, that they'll never feel that level of intensity again. Because when this trauma occurs, and it really has become a trauma because the expectations are so high from love that when it comes crashing down, the traumatic experience of losing the loved one to an affair threatens our sense of self. Our ability to trust is weakened. Our ability to open our heart is reduced. And we begin to think that something is wrong with me. That goes really, really, really deep. It lands into an area of shame, of inadequacy. Something is wrong with me. And then we build up these walls and we armor our heart and we make it difficult to let anyone else in. We have set our expectations really high. We have great high standards of the kind of person we want to let into our life. We think we're learning, but actually we're just protecting ourselves. And then there is another layer of problem, and that is entitlement. We live in a time where we feel that we feel entitled to our dreams and to pursue them and our desires. And when things aren't working out in our relationship, we think, well, I deserve to be happy, and I don't deserve this. The kind of conflicts or problems that might be arising during the relationship. And then we leave for someone who's going to make me happier. Another big myth, that I want to find someone who will make me happy, someone who will make me laugh. And I truly disagree with that idea that someone can actually make you happy. I deeply believe, or that someone will make you feel loved. I deeply believe that that feeling of love and of happiness comes from within us, and that when two happy people meet, we have the most incredible union. Two people who feel love for themselves meet, then we're able to share things without unrealistic expectations from each other. The other problem that occurs in relationships is this sense of merging, this sense of two becoming one. And unfortunately, what happens in this, what has often been called the codependent relationship, we lose part of ourself in relating. And we experience, after we do that, an emptiness, a deadness, a stagnation. The desire to feel more alive and vibrant begins to bubble up in us. And to make up for lost time and taste the forbidden, that's where the affairs happen. We actually might leave someone, but often it's not because that person is so wrong or bad, but because we don't like the person we became when we lost ourselves and we want to reinvent ourselves. In a way, it feels like death. And sometimes people come to a place when there is death in their relationships, a loss or a death in their family. It could be even a loss of a job, and they begin to contemplate their mortality. They begin to think, is this going to be my fate for the rest of my life? No, I've got to do something different. I've got to do something better. And they walk out almost as if walking out into an affair would be the antidote to death, or for that matter, divorce might be some way to recover their lives. So in my book, Loving Soulfully, I talked about this, and I try to dig deep, not just looking at what sociologists and psychologists say, but also my inner voice. So I was asking my inner voice, I said, will I ever find someone who will nurture, care for, and love me, who will complete me, adore me, and make me feel special, who I can call my own and be with forever? Is it true that one day I will meet my ideal lover and soulmate? I wonder, is the ideal of romantic love true? I want to know what love is. I want to experience true love. I have tried and failed. Will you show me the way? The inner voice replies, the mythology of romantic love is a mentally concocted, religiously manipulated, socially conditioned, media-enhanced delusion that has nothing to do with true love. The knight in shining armor will never save you. The perfect mate will never complete you. The happily ever after fairy tale ending will never come to pass. If you really want to fulfill your soul's yearning for undying romance, passion, and true love, if you really want to free yourself from these grand illusions that have birthed deep pain, disappointment, and betrayal, then come with me on a journey into the heart and soul. When you think of your lover as the one true love who will complete you, save you, and fulfill your needs, then you set yourself up for failure. Your vision is sweet and romantic, but no person can ever live up to it. Your expectations seem sensible, but they are unrealistic and will trap you in a web of emotions. Do not blame your lovers for having disappointed, hurt, and betrayed you. The root cause of all your tragic love stories is this egoic ideal of romantic love. Now, I'd like to take up, why do I say it's an egoic ideal? Because what we've called love, I believe, has a lot to do with the way our ego functions. We create a list of qualities that we would like to have, as if a person was a commodity. We view them and see whether they have this checklist of qualities that we desire. And then we allow the walls within us to come crumbling down and open our hearts up to love them, only to find that while they might have some of those qualities, they also have many more which we don't want. And this egoic search for what I want is not what love is all about. Love is much bigger than that. Love is not just a desire like wanting a thing or an object, a house or a car or a lifestyle. And for a lot of people, they've made it that. Love to me is something that is the yearning of our soul to discover the infinite. Love is the grandest expression of who we are, seeking that expression within ourselves, within the world, and within a partner. But what does that mean? What am I saying, the grandest expression of ourself? To me, that experience of love occurs when we step out of our mind. Which is why in my earlier part of this webinar series, I talked about the importance of self-love. I talked about the importance of taming the mind. I talked about how we can go beyond the mind and ego and enter into the area of love. Where is that area of love? I believe that lies within us, within our soul, within our essence. It is that particle of God within us that can teach us about what love is, because only it knows. Only it is made of pure love. So if you want to know about pure love, it's not me that will teach you about it. It is not a book. It is not a psychologist. It is not anyone who will teach you except pure love. And pure love lies in your heart, in your soul. My proposal to you is practice methods of meditation that allow you to go within and experience that soul. Learn to connect with it. Learn to have it express itself, because it knows the ways of love. Love will be your teacher, will be your guide. But that love which arises will not be out of your head, it will be from within you. Pablo Picasso would say, when I go to paint, I leave my mind outside the door of my studio, the way people leave their shoes outside a temple or mosque. And then I enter barefoot. Similarly, we enter without our mind, without our ego, into the arena of love. And it is there that we begin to experience how to love another. And it begins by first learning how to love ourselves. Love will not fulfill the expectations that you have. Love will not fulfill your needs. Love will not give you what you desire. Rather, love will take you on a ride that is going to shake up everything that you ever thought. In Loving Soulfully, I continue to write, break the chains of romantic love that have caused loneliness, disappointment, and pain. Step out of your mind. Let go of your sad stories of hurt and betrayal. In holding them, you only punish yourself and recreate that which you do not want. Love lies at your core. Your soul longs to love and be loved. You have felt love many times, but have no idea how to honor it. You want to find your soulmate, but unless you connect with your soul, how will you recognize another or be able to love soulfully? You have thousands of soulmates. They appear as your children, parents, friends, lovers, and spouses. They appear as those you hate and those you love. They appear in order to evolve your soul, and when their part is done, they may choose to leave or stay. There is no guarantee that any of them will be your ideal life partner or will live with you happily ever after. I then continue to write, the river of love flows not for the weak-hearted who seek safety, security, and comfort. Love makes no promises, gives no reassurance or guarantees. Love stirs up passion in the heart and fills the soul with longing to soar to the highest heights. At the same time, love mercilessly exposes your weaknesses, rips open your carefully constructed masks, and dismantles your well-defended ego. All that you think you are turns inside out, as love playfully weaves her magic spell. So in all of this, I'm talking about how love doesn't come to create safety, security, and comfort. Those are things we will definitely long for as a human being. We want them, and they're important to us. But we need to understand that along with safety, security, and comfort, we need to allow love to soar to its highest heights, to be imaginative, to be playful, to be creative, to be willing to push off our insecurities and our jealousies and our fears. Because as we push them and we see our partner continues to be with us on our journey, we build the deepest bonds. So when you bring freedom and security together, when you bring a sense of playfulness and a sense of togetherness, as in consistency, you begin to find that you're walking the best of both worlds, that which is human and that which is divine. That, to me, is the beginning of the exploration of what the future of love looks like. I'm going to continue talking about this in future episodes. We're going to explore many different ways in which to make this real. The idea in this particular episode was to give you just a beginning idea of where we're headed. But as we move further, we're going to learn to look at what communication looks like, what touch looks like, what that craziness of love, how to keep it alive, what that beginning phase of love, how to not only, but also to help it rise, to become more intense, to become even more powerful, how to set each other free and how to make each other safe at the same time. So we're going to explore a lot of different things in the upcoming webinars. And stay with me on that. Welcome back. So I hope that has given you a place from which to begin this discussion. And I'd love to know your thoughts. I'd love to know what you make of love, what have been your realizations, your insights, and how you feel love needs to change as we go forward on this journey to understanding love at its highest potential. We think of love as being something we're going to live happily ever after. And to me, that's another take from religion, which is this idea of paradise. We're going to be or heaven. That we're going to go to this place where everything's going to be good, and we're going to live happily for the rest of, for eternity. And the same idea we've also borrowed and brought into our romantic relationships, that it's going to last forever, that it's going to be paradise, that it's going to be that we get disappointed. So I think coming to terms with the nature of love and how it actually is there to unravel us. I think all of life is there to unravel us. All of life's situations work together, the chaos we see in the world. I've often questioned, why is there so much of chaos in the world, so much of war and, rape and disease and so much of ups and downs, death and, so much. Why? Why was the world, if it was created by someone, if there is a God, why would that happen? And I know a lot of people ask that question and then turn away and say, oh, there is nothing, there is no God. And I look deeper, and as I really introspect and come into that answer, I realize that what appears isn't necessarily always what is. That the deeper reason that the world is designed with all of this chaos in it is so that we may, because we've been given these longings for peace, longings for love, longings for happiness, longings for eternality, but we have not been given the fulfillment in this world. But when we strive for these things and we don't find them, the hope is that we will turn within and we will find those very things that we've been seeking for within ourselves. That we will find within ourselves the peace that we long for, the joy, the love, the sense of foreverness, and be more come to a place where we truly experience within ourselves this magical sweetness that lies within the soul. It's something that's been it has become a very intrinsic part of my life. It wasn't so. I struggled with getting there. I struggled with being able to find that. But I found that as I was able to quiet my mind, I was able to come and spend more time with my inner self, the soul. I found within that the greatest treasure of all. And that treasure is, I think, something that each person needs to find for themselves. And then when you come to a relationship, you're there celebrating life. There is nothing further to be done. The struggle is over. The suffering is over. You're not there as part of trying to solve the world through the other person, looking at the other person as the one who's going to rescue you, make everything okay for you, be the antidote to all life's problems. That's such a lot to place on anybody, isn't it? Because I'm talking about the problems in romantic love, I think sometimes it might be easy to think that, oh, I'm against love or romantic love. No, I'm not. Not at all. Very much a romantic. But for me, it's about understanding what makes it work and what kills it. And that study, I think, is something we all need to undertake, to understand, well, it's like you have a great car, but you still got to know what makes it work, what makes it bang and have an accident. You need to know that. You need to know how to operate it. So without an operating manual, without a sense of and our operating manual is so outdated, it's perhaps, hundreds of years old. No one's even bothered to, redo it, question it, challenge it, and come up with. Of course, there are people now coming up with new ideas. Those ideas could range from open relationships to polyamory, and they do cover some aspect of the relationship crisis. But and then, of course, there's so many psychologists with so many wonderful tools and ways in which we can communicate and we can be with each other. But I think there's much more needed. And that's where I think some of the stuff that is there in Loving Soulfully can be extremely helpful. So I'll continue on reading a little bit more. Love is life, heightened, deepened, and enhanced. In her arms you will find all that you desire, and more than you ever imagined. Love creates and destroys, gives and takes away, fulfills, yet leaves you longing for more. It is easy to fall in love, but those who flow with love, ride her passionate waves, embrace her bittersweet joys and sorrows, reinvent themselves relentlessly, and surrender everything. They experience the highest ecstasy of love. They emerge enlightened, radiant, joyful, and free. They become soulful lovers. So this, to me, this last bit, is really the intent that I see of love. Love comes to elevate us. It comes to enlighten us about the true nature of who we are and who the other person is. If you want to have a soulful relationship, I've been saying this for a while now, that you need to know your soul. And then you will recognize the soul of another. And then to learn how to keep the soul vibrant and alive, you first need to know how to do it for your soul. What does it take for it to thrive? And then what does it take for to bring that into a relationship? As you come into that relationship, it's very important to let go your expectations, your preconceived notions, and to ride the waves of love, ride her passionate waves, embrace her bittersweet joys and sorrows, because they're going to come. And just as with life, we need to be able to live from a place of acceptance of all the ups and downs and realize that none of that is the real me. None of that, the ups and downs of life, the successes and failures, none of that defines who I am. Neither my age, nor my achievements, nor what I have, what I own, none of that defines who I am. And similarly, the experiences I have do not define who I am. So embracing the bittersweet joys and sorrows of life, of love, and reinventing yourself relentlessly, I think that's something that you may want to think about, because a lot of folks would like to, just, especially as they get older, would like to just kind of be a certain way. Take it easy, relax. And I find that life gets exciting when you keep looking at, what can I do to reinvent myself? I find that a lot of times when I have couples come to me in therapy and we're trying to work through their issues, they're busy blaming each other. You did this and you did that, and she does this, she does that. Or he does this and he does that, and he did, and then they'll go back for months, for years, and be looking at what the other person did. And I have to point out to them, I said, this is not helping you. Looking at what the other person did and blaming and pointing fingers and finding fault isn't going to help love. Love dies in that environment. Love gets throttled, suffocates, chokes within that environment. If you really are interested in having your love thrive, then it's vital that you be able to take responsibility. How did I bring this about? How did I contribute to this? And then keep reinventing yourself. Keep recreating, taking out parts of yourself that aren't serving you. Keep bringing forth new aspects of yourself that will uplift you and make you into a better human being. Now, one might say, well, that's such a tedious and arduous job. And I think you're absolutely right. It can be, if you're trying to do it with your physical and mental capabilities. But what I find is that some of the best qualities that we seek for and aspire lie within us, in our soul. So really all you've got to do is take a deep breath, come within your body and feel the presence of that wonderful spark of the divine or of God within you, and allow it to come forth. So it's not a matter of becoming something or achieving something or attaining something. It's really allowing the soul to emerge more and more and more. I'm not saying that I or anyone I know has been enlightened where they're completely in that state all the time. No, we tend to slip back into our mind and ego. It's this ongoing back and forth. But the point is, we know this resource is available within us, and we know that if we tap into it, we can self-improvement which people try to do through some kind of, workshop or seminar or this or that, is actually easily available to you right within you. It's not something that has to be attained, or there's no need to struggle for it. It's the easiest. I find it to be but each time I become aware of my flaws, each time that I'm with a person, an interaction or relationship or whatever it might be, if that person is able to trigger me, and if that person is able to get me to the place where I'm out of my center, then it becomes a moment for me to reflect. Oh, what is that piece in me that is causing me to get thrown off? And instead of justifying that, or instead of blaming the other person, I try to say, okay, that part is not serving me, that part is triggering me, that part is making me angry. Maybe I need to heal it with a little love and compassion for myself. Or I need to be able to reframe it and look at it differently, that situation, right? Or I need to bring up a part of me that is more capable than this aspect of myself which isn't working. So I'd love to know if you have any thoughts on that, what you do in your life and how you deal with some of these situations. But yeah. And to me also the whole issue of surrender is vital. When I see with couples, as they quarrel and as they fight with each other, I realize that it's all about being right. Having your opinion is a good thing, but not being able to let it go is going to cause conflict. Having an opinion can be very empowering, but holding on to an opinion can cause immense conflict and strife in a relationship. In a relationship of any kind, there are two people involved, and each one of those people sees things differently. Your ability to step into their mind and see it the way they see things, the way they see it, is vital. Doesn't mean you got to let go of who you are. It doesn't mean you've got to let go of your ideas or your thoughts. But you do need to be able to step out of your mind and into their mind. And once you're able to see things from their perspective, you're welcome to come back and then speak about yours. So that's another vital part, and that's where I again feel that meditation truly helps us in being able to not be so attached to our thoughts, opinions, beliefs, and be able to have more flexibility. Ultimately, surrender is not about giving up. It's not giving up your point of view. It's not giving up in a conflict. It's about saying, I hear you. I get what you're trying to say, and being able to actually get it and show them that you get it. And be willing to surrender your point of view. Know that no matter what point of view you have, it is a subjective, limited understanding of any situation. Nothing that I know, nothing that you know, nothing that anybody knows is perfect. Neither my opinion, nor your opinion, nor anybody's opinion is the truth. Perhaps there's no such thing as the truth, or perhaps there is such a thing as an evolving truth that is constantly growing and expanding, just as the universe is. So, if that be the case, then it's really important for us to stay flexible, curious, and open. And that, to me, is what surrender looks like. Curious, flexible, and open. So if you can practice that in your relationships, you're going to find that it'd be easier to let go your point of view, embrace another's, maybe come together and bring, take both or multiple points of view and create something new out of that. That kind of creative process can be very inspiring, rather than a single focus, this is the way you should do it, this is the right way, this is what has to happen. That can be very dogmatic, very stifling for the other person and for yourself even. You're locked into a particular school of thought or a particular idea. So that, to me, is what surrender is all about. And I think once that is experienced, I write this last bit here, they experience the highest ecstasy of love. Love's full potential is revealed, and we emerge from such relationships enlightened, radiant, joyful, and free. That's the other really important part. The embracing of freedom in relationships rather than always trying to make it the same. We're going to discuss this a lot more in the upcoming episode, so I hope you'll stay with me on that. We're going to talk a lot more about the different aspects of soulful relationships and how to really cultivate a soulful relationship, because it's not just, I've just begun the topic. If you read Loving Soulfully, you'll see there is a whole lot more. And each and every page in there, in fact, each and every line in there, can be really unpacked and expanded and looked at from many different perspectives. So I hope that in the days to come, you'll go through Loving Soulfully, write down your questions, bring them up when you come over here, and we can discuss them together. I would really look forward to your inputs, your ideas, your realizations, your doubts, your concerns. I'm sure you're going to have those, because we are kind of busting through a lot of myths, and we are looking at recreating the paradigm of romantic love. And I'd love to have your inputs on that. Please take the time to do it. I'll be back next Saturday, 10 a.m. Pacific time and 10:30 p.m. India time, to join all of you in this exploration. I hope you'll stay with me and keep going further. If any of you have friends that you would like to recommend this to, please let them know about it. I have put up some of the past videos on YouTube. Please go there and like, comment, and please subscribe to my channel. That's a really, really, really important thing you can do for me. I'd really appreciate that. Just type my name in, Rohit Juneja. You'll find me on YouTube, and subscribe to the channel, like and comment, because your comments will again bring forth more discussion with other people, and I look forward to that. And I look forward to seeing you here next Saturday. Be here with some more inputs for you. So till then, have a wonderful and blessed time, and fill your heart and soul with love and share it with the world. It's time to take this love that lies within all of us, that lies all around us, to experience it and give it freely to everyone. There is a tremendous shortage of love around us. Well, there's no shortage actually. There's a shortage of the expression of that. We're all thirsty and starving and hoping to get love. But I think once you find it within yourself, once you find it in the world around you, you'll be able to connect with a partner in a much better way. And you'll be able to share that with people in your life. So have a wonderful time. May your life be filled with love and happiness. I'll see you next time.